This is taking innovation with me and sharing it. I've done a lot of work and exploration with innovation recently in classes toward my master's degree. Innovation is solving a problem in a new and unique way, and most of the time it changes the world. What it looks like in the classroom, excuse me, is student choice and control of their learning. The the readings I've done this semester have been by the authors Tony Wagner and Wettrick. Both very inspirational and a lot of research in the ideas. So, uh, innovation is a process, and if you're doing the process right, the process starts with a problem. And what it looks like in the classroom is your students are coming up with that problem. So I'm gonna share with you the process of my sharing innovation with you. So I started to brainstorm what the problem was. I looked at that I was teaching a technical classroom. I teach high school chemistry. There are so many ways they can go wrong because they're doing math in many places, and there can be safety issues too. So I looked at that. I said there's always issues of the standards and funding. I teach in Massachusetts. Um, I have taught in a traditional classroom space that could be counterproductive to teaching innovation. Students are not used to learning in the innovation world. The school is not used to having an innovation classroom, and the world has put all these expectations on students and teachers and administrators in schools that produce a product instead of look at the process. So I started brainstorming these, and I realized after brainstorming that I started with the what and not the why I was doing it. And stories are better told through the why. So I looked at the things that I brainstormed, and most of them were excuses. I'm always going to have the opportunity for students to mess up. There's always going to be issues with funding. The standards are always going to be there. And there's always going to be pushback. Innovation is disruptive by nature. So people are resistant to change, and so they will push against it. And what it boiled down to was my real problems were transition and acceptance into this innovation culture. So I started over again with the why, and it's more of a top-down design. So if you're telling the best story, you're saying, I do this because this is important to me, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is what I'm going to do. And that's the order to do it that means the most. As teachers, we're selling a product, we're selling knowledge, and this is the most effective way to tell your story and sell your knowledge, get your students on board. So with that, why I developed my question. How can I transition my classroom and the school environment into an innovation culture in the face of resistance? So students have expected norms, administrators have expectations, and the school has expectations, the town has expectations, everybody has these expectations. So how do I transition through that? I started with my values. So if I'm doing innovation right, and my students are becoming skilled the way I want them to, this is what I value in my students. So as soon as students start to go into the United States school system, this is ruined. Like when you're born, you value questions, you explore, and as soon as you get into school, you knew an answer. Congratulations! I commend your efforts. But we really need to value the questions so much greater than the answers, because this is much more motivating than, okay, I knew an answer, great. The process of innovation is so much more important than the product. When innovation happens, the original product will change so many times through this concept of rapid prototyping. But the learning happens more throughout the process. If students are doing this right, I will have them be excellent risk takers. And it's okay that they're taking risks, because hopefully by the end of the year with them, they won't be saying, oh, I lost if I took a risk and I messed up. They'll be saying, okay, I moved closer and closer toward my goal. This is a rapid prototype system. I made something, it didn't work like I wanted to, I made it better. It still goes closer, I kept making it better and better and better until it got closer to where I wanted it to be. So multiple iterations. And this will cause persistence. I don't know if anybody has played video games, but the reason people get so into video games is the challenge. Like, they want to get to that boss. They persist. They lose and lose and lose over and over again until they get there, and they get so much satisfaction from winning. So you want to push that persistence and continue that motivation of the students. If you're doing it all this stuff correctly, you'll encourage creative thinking. And it's encouraged so much more when you're giving them choice over a reward system. And since they'll be working in teams, they'll have opportunities for leadership, and it will naturally occur. And it will naturally occur so much more than if you are standing in front of the classroom talking to your students, as opposed to them working in groups. And hopefully with this system, they will develop concern for the world around them. So for this to happen, I need to be an outlier teacher with no chance of tenure. This was a common phrase or theme in the reading. All the best teachers at the colleges we read about did not have tenure, nor did they ever think they were going to get tenure. It's a lot easier to achieve tenure status at a high school rather than a college, but the main point of this is that if your concern is more for your student progress than what the people above you think about your work, then you are going to be successful as a teacher, and your students are going to be successful. And what that means to be an outlier teacher is your time shift boils down to it's less you teaching and more the students exploring their passions and teaching each other. You're really just there for support to empower and enable them. So what this can look like is you flip your classroom. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to follow their passions and just completely use your time to check in with them. This isn't saying that your direct instruction is gone altogether. It can be there if the students say, we want to know more about this, and then you can do a mini lesson on their request, which is great because it's at the request of the students. They're asking the question and they're requesting the knowledge. Interdisciplinary is a huge thing. So your students, I teach high school chemistry, other sciences as well, but my students should be able to approach a chemistry problem through math, through psychology, through history, multiple different angles of instruction. And I'll give you an example of this later. And some great examples in the book of innovation in the classroom involved what we called whimsical play. So there's a bit of whimsy in your exploration, which makes it fun, and competition inside the classroom. This competition does not come with a reward system. It's just more of this whimsy. You're competing against the class to see who builds the best product just because it's fun. And I'll talk more about that later. But being the outlier is being a living example. You have all these values for your students. It's very important that you embody these in yourself so they know that it's okay to take risks, to ask questions, to collaborate with each other. And you're there for their support the whole time. So this was Tony Wagner's flow of innovation. So play is exploration. We all have this as toddlers, all the way up till we enter school, and then it's kind of crushed. We stop playing as much, and then with your play, you develop passions about your explorations, and eventually you if you're going to work, you do something that defines your life. It's no longer that I get paid a whole bunch of money and that makes me very happy in my job, or I want to get a bonus, so I work really hard. It's that I believe in what I'm doing, and so that makes me happy with what my work is. And this whole process happens through empowerment. Okay, so bringing it to life, we have all these great values. How do we make it work in the classroom? So you have to introduce innovation through empowerment. You want the students to be empowered and to do the process on their own, so you have to teach them the process through empowerment. You're going to start small. We build skills in the classroom all the time. We start little and we build them to harder and harder skills. Don't give your students the answers. They're learning, and it's much more fun for them to learn through discovery. So do not give them the answers. We'll talk about collaboration and multiple sources of collaboration. We'll talk about the learning space of the classroom or outside the classroom. Accountability. So you're giving them much more class time. This is a concern, and we'll talk about how to keep them accountable so that they use their time productively. Social media is a big role that I did not see initially until a reading that I did. So we'll talk about that. And I'll give you some examples of how to transition your lessons into innovation classes. So I talked about the reward system. If you YouTube, Google, this is a TED Talk by Daniel Pink. It's called The Candle Problem. The Candle Problem is an experiment where individuals or groups were given these materials: a candle, a box of tacks, and a match. And I won't spoil the surprise, but the problem presented is attach the candle to the wall so that the wax does not drip on the table. And what was important that they found in this is that the groups that were offered a monetary reward or some other reward were slower than the groups who were just given autonomy of how they did it. They said, here's all the pieces, you guys solved the problem. Those groups did it faster and were more successful than the groups who said, I really want the money. I want to do it the fastest, so I want the money. So what this proves is that the carrot at the end of the stick is not as supportive as the power of choice and empowerment. So check out Daniel Pink and the Candle Problem online. So start small, don't give answers. And here's an example of how to start innovation in your classroom. This is how I will do it the next time I start an innovation class. So the first assignment that I'll give when I'm ready to start innovation, I'll have my classroom rules and procedures in place. Everybody will know what's expected of them, and then I'll say, okay, we're going to start some innovation. So I want you guys to find an example of a school that is different, that the students run, they have power over what they learn, the teacher's not the main source of information. And then you're going to post that school, that classroom, to our online forum. It could be Twitter, it could be Moodle, it could be whatever you like. You're the teacher. Then you're going to view your classmates' post and post your likes and dislikes of each example. This can be done in or outside the classroom. It's probably a much more productive time for them to do it outside of the classroom, so you can use class time for them to collaborate and explore. But that is up to you. So when you're ready to use the time in your class, you request each student for homework to bring 3 questions for discussion in the classroom. Okay, so they've talked about it online, and then you're going to have a classroom discussion. You're going to group your desks in a circle so that they're all in view of each other. You're going to join the circle because your main role is to support this discussion during this time. And your goal is for students to want to run the class. That's what innovation is based on, is student control of their learning. Okay, so that's a way to start it There are others, but this is a way that I think would be effective. So, to encourage student collaboration, you give them brainstorming time in class. It'll be slow in the beginning, but you want to encourage them to feel comfortable when you say, okay, now it's time to brainstorm, that they talk to each other, they bounce ideas off each other, so they turn their problems into questions and refine them. During the projects that they have, each group has a mentor for their project, an expert mentor. So why this is so important is because of networking. You may have gotten the job you have now because you've known somebody. And we want students to build their web of people that they know in the fields they might want to go into as far as they can during their time on the way up, so that when it comes time to look for a job or when they develop a new problem, they have someone who they can go to. And it's really important that you constantly check in with your students during this collaboration time, just to keep them on task, clarify anything, and continually encourage them through the process. Learning space. A single classroom is not enough. You need at least 3 spaces. This is the hardest part for me as a teacher, but the most effective way to do it is if you have a quiet space for research, you have a collaborative space for team meetings, and you have an active space that allows for rapid prototyping and noise. I think it'd be fun to let the students name these spaces, but since you're giving them full autonomy, full choice over their time, they should be able to freely move between these spaces. You could have 3 teachers, 1 in each classroom, and the students could move through the spaces. Teachers are there to support them through the process. Students can request mini lessons. Maybe they're in the collaborative space. Not all the students need to go to the mini lessons. But so this is the most challenging part, but it can be very effective if done right. Accountability. One person is never as good as a team. We recommend groups of 2 to 3. When you start to get to that 4 margin, you can have someone who won't be able to contribute as much to the group. So 2 or 3 in a group is really best. Now, here's the biggest piece to keep them accountable. I would suggest at least once a week you have students vlog their progress on their project or whatever you're having them work on, and post it to social media. Maybe they post their vlog to YouTube, maybe they tweet their YouTube vlog. It is much more intimidating to your student to have feedback from the world than to you as their teacher. And they're going to get feedback from the world when they do this. So they don't want to be lame to the world. And if you have a class hashtag, you can very easily see their vlogs, and all the other students in the class can see their vlogs so they can see what they're at. Their parents at home can see their vlogs. Social media is not just for the kids. You're a teacher, there are other passionate teachers out there. You should have social media to get ideas and share ideas. But for the students, you can use social media as a chance for mastery. They post their products to social media. The world sees their products. The world gives them feedback. They get good feedback and bad feedback. And they learn to take it. Okay, whether it's great or if it's bad, to say, oh, well, that guy made a great point, or that guy made a point that said, oh, I don't really agree with that. Okay, it will inspire the students that somebody cares about that. They put so much time into this project, people get to see it. You'll inspire other teachers. Maybe you'll get approval from the school board about your innovation class that they were very doubtful. You promote your class. You might inspire other teachers to do innovation in their own class. Inspire students to do their own projects. This is cool, parent involvement. So parents can make suggestions via social media. They're very supportive, and they have a lot of pride because they feel like they're a part of what their students are doing in your classroom. They can see it directly. So here's a couple examples of how to transition actual lessons. So lab safety is a very technical lesson If you go wrong, you can get hurt. So I sometimes show videos of what went wrong and ask the students to see what went wrong. I ask them to familiarize themselves with lab equipment. A way I can transition this is I can say, go make a lab safety video without giving them any information. Find an expert mentor who works in the lab. Make a lab safety video. They have complete choice of how they do it, what they use, and they will be in full control of the process. Post your lab safety video. Have all your classmates watch it. They get feedback. The world can give the feedback. Learning history and science. So there are units that can be pretty boring because of how dry some of the experiments can be with history. If you ask the students, say, pick a scientist in our curriculum, find the standard, you need to, on this date, dress up like this scientist and be able to answer any question your audience asks you about your scientist. It might not be in the field of science. It might be what kind of family they had, what it was like in that time. So you're looking at a multidisciplinary lesson here. The history and the science, maybe they can even get into how that person feels and thinks about the time they're living in. And once they get really good at innovation, you get that creation. So create a game that demonstrates a learning goal. They can pick a learning goal. Any learning goal, you give them the standards, they pick a learning goal, they create a game that can be played in class to show they understand the learning goal, and other students can learn from them. The main goal of innovation is empowerment through autonomy and support. Students have full control over their learning, and you are there to support them. You're an outlier teacher, and you're making the world a better place through empowering these students. Good luck. Have fun.